Guys, sorry. The iPad on my little brother's iPad died, or the battery did. The battery died, like he told me it would. Didn't listen to him. Um, but I'm going to continue with rhetorical analysis of Vonnegut's writing in this in chapter 4. And I was talking about the quote, the bombers opened their bay, or talking about his satire and dark humor in this chapter. He says, the bombers opened their bomb bay doors, exerted a miraculous magnetism which shrunk the fires, gathered them into cylindrical steel containers, and lifted the containers into the bellies of the planes. The containers were stored neatly in racks. The Germans below had miraculous devices of their own, which were long steel tubes. So his dark humor can be seen, his satire can be seen throughout the book, but it's especially effective here, just to show how horrible war is, and by doing it backwards, it's there's very like I said before when I was talking about his diction, it's very effective satire because it's cutting and he uses the word miraculously and touchingly. It gets it. It really illustrates the atrocities of war. If by doing it in reverse, it's clever. And then he also uses irony to drive his point home. And he says, the same scene where he's watching the war backwards, the documentary, he says, it's very ironic, he says, over France though, German fighters came up again, made everything and everybody as good as new. It's ironic because the German fighters were clearly doing quite the opposite in reality of making everything and everybody as good as new. But I mean, it's effective rhetoric because it shows how terrible what they actually are doing is if you think about it. And then this is a little bit more complex irony, but when he's talking about Edgar Derby, he says, he introduces him and he says, he also took very good care of his body. Derby's son would survive the war. Derby wouldn't. That good body of his would be filled with holes by a firing squad in Dresden in 68 days. So it goes. So this is ironic because Derby was just convinced. Derby has to do with Derby not having free will. Free will is an illusion and stuff. But Derby does everything he can basically he is in good health, and then I think before I said that he taught a class on Western civilization problems, but he still couldn't prevent. It's ironic because, I mean, you would expect the opposite if he kept in good shape and was determined to get back home. That it's ironic that he was certain to die. And then also another rhetorical device that Vonnegut utilizes is repetition throughout the book, or anaphora. And it appears all throughout the book, probably most notably in the form of So It Goes. It's kind of just the whole theme of the book, but in this chapter it appears a lot. But one repetitive phrase that Vonnegut uses is blue and ivory feet, or blue and ivory hand. He describes Billy's feet as blue and ivory while Billy is walking through his house at the beginning of the chapter. And then at the end of the chapter as well, he describes Billy's hand as a blue and ivory claw. And then he also describes the hobo's feet as blue and ivory after the hobo is dead. And this shows that this repetition and like these just random events like show that no incident in this book is isolated, and like everything is connected, and that Billy's feet while walking through his house waiting to be kidnapped has the same description as the hobo's feet when he's dead in a boxcar in Germany, as a POW, on like a POW train. And then he also mentions mustard gas and roses, which is only mentioned one time in this chapter, but it's a recurring like symbol or like imagery throughout the book, description. And he says that the drunk's breath smelled like mustard gas and roses through the phone. That's an important symbol in the rest of the novel, and it appears just once in this chapter. And then So It Goes is probably the most noteworthy use of repetition, just to show the overall theme of the book, that just that, like, just basically that so it goes, like, that's how, like, it's how it's gonna be, like, that's how it is, that's how it always has been, that's how it always will be, and that, there's a lot of themes, but probably the most, through the repetition, Vonnegut shows it the most notable is that, like, the acceptance of things that are going to happen, and it's just how it goes. And he uses that throughout the book, especially in this chapter. And this was an important chapter, and I hope that you learned from my presentation, and I hope that I can upload this to YouTube so you guys can watch it. So, good night.